What if I told you the king of bad boy records just got sentenced to 50 months in prison, that a jury watched videos he recorded himself, and that his ex-girlfriend's testimony put the final nail in the coffin? Here's how everything collapsed.
Like, subscribe, thank you.
Sean Combs built an empire. Bad Boy Records launched the careers of Biggie, Faith Evans, and pretty much defined the East Coast hip-hop in the 90s. The guy threw legendary white parties in the Hamptons where every A-lister wanted an invite. He rebranded himself more times than most people could change their email passwords. Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, Diddy, Love, Sean Puffy Combs. He won Grammys. He launched clothing lines. He sold vodka like it was liquid gold. By the mid-2000s, Combs was pulling in hundreds of millions and living like royalty. His name meant power, money, and access to whatever you wanted in the entertainment world. But behind all that success was something else, something darker, something that festered for decades while everybody else all looked away. And when it finally came out hard. The first real crack in the armor showed up in November of 2023. Cassie Ventura, the singer who dated Combs on and off for about 10 years, filed a lawsuit. And she didn't hold back. She alleged rape, physical abuse, sex trafficking, years of control and manipulation. She claimed Combs forced her into these sexual situations with male escorts while he watched and recorded everything. She said he beat her, tracked her movements, and basically owned her life. The lawsuit detailed hotel room incidents, drug use, threats, and a level of abuse that sounded more like a hostage situation than a relationship. Combs settled with Cassie the next day. One day. That is how fast he wanted it gone. But settling didn't make it go away. It opened the floodgates. More accusers came forward. A woman named Joy Dickerson Neal sued him, claiming that he drugged and assaulted her back in '91 when she was a college student. Another woman, Lisa Gardner, said Combs and singer Aaron Hall assaulted her and a friend in the early '90s. And then came even more damning stuff involving young ones, allegations from former Bad Boy employees, allegations from people who attended his parties and woke up with no memory of what happened. The list kept growing. And by mid-2024, there were dozens of civil suits piling up, each one more disturbing than the last. And then came the feds. In March 2024, Homeland Security raided Combs' homes in LA and Miami. They seized computers, hard drives, what prosecutors later described as freak-off supplies, drugs, lubricant, baby oil by the caseload, and recording equipment. Lots and lots of recording equipment. Apparently, Combs had a thing for documenting everything. He filmed these so-called freak-offs, which were basically orchestrated sex sessions, where he'd fly in male escorts, drug up his girlfriends, watch them perform while he sat back and enjoyed the show. And sometimes these sessions lasted for days. The women involved were reportedly coerced, threatened, often too messed up on drugs to even know what was happening. In September 2024, Combs was arrested in Manhattan. The indictment hit him with racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking, transportation for prostitution charges. Prosecutors painted a picture of a criminal enterprise disguised as a record label. They said that Combs used his wealth, power, and a network of employees to facilitate abuse, cover it up, and intimidate anybody who might talk. They argued he had been running this operation for decades, using Bad Boy Records and his various business ventures as a front. The racketeering charge alone could have put him away for life. His legal team fought back hard. They tried to get him out on bail, offering to put up his Miami mansion as collateral and promising he'd stay under house arrest with GPS monitoring. The judge said, hell no, twice. Combs sat in Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center, a facility so notorious for its conditions that even mobsters complain about it. And he was in there with guys facing serious federal time, sharing a cell block, eating prison food, watching his empire crumble from behind bars. The trial started in May 2025 and lasted 8 weeks. Federal prosecutors brought receipts. They had videos. They had testimony from Cassie, who described in painful detail what Combs did to her. They had testimony from another victim, identified only as Jane, who said Combs flew her across state lines specifically for sex. They had financial records showing payments to escorts. They had text messages, emails, recorded phone calls. They had former employees who talked about what they saw and what they're told to cover up. The evidence was completely overwhelming. Combs' defense tried to argue that everything was consensual, that these were just kinky relationships between adults, and that the accusers were motivated by money and fame. They pointed out that some of the women continued working with Combs after the alleged abuse, which the defense claim proved nothing had happened, but the jury wasn't buying it. On July 2nd, 2025, after 3 days of deliberation, they came back with a split verdict. Not guilty on racketeering conspiracy. Not guilty on sex trafficking. But guilty on 2 counts of transportation for prostitution under the Mann Act, an old federal law originally designed to stop human trafficking across state lines. Those 2 guilty verdicts carried a maximum of 20 years in prison. Prosecutors wanted him to get at least 11 years. They argued that Combs showed no remorse, that he was a danger to the community, and that his wealth and influence made him a flight risk. The defense pushed for 14 months, basically the time he had already served since his arrest. They said Combs was a changed man, that he had been humbled and broken, and that he deserved some kind of leniency. On October 3rd, 2025, Combs stood in front of Judge Arun Subramanian in Manhattan and spoke publicly for the first time since his arrest. He was crying. He talked about how he'd been humbled, how he recognized his behavior was sick, and how sorry he was. He begged for leniency. The judge listened and then handed down 50 months in prison, just over 4 years. Many would say that was highly lenient. He also hit Combs with a $500,000 fine and 5 years of supervised release after his sentence. With credit for time served, Combs will be behind bars until late 2028 or early 2029. He'll be in his late 50s when he gets out, assuming he doesn't win on appeal. And he's definitely appealing. His lawyers filed paperwork almost immediately, claiming the prosecution didn't prove their case and that the Mann Act charges were applied incorrectly. They argued that paying for someone's travel doesn't automatically mean you're transporting them for prostitution, and that the jury should have been given clearer instructions. Legal experts aren't optimistic about his chances. The Second Circuit Court of Appeals rarely overturns federal convictions, especially when there's video evidence and multiple witnesses. But the damage is already done. Bad Boy Records is effectively dead. Artists who were once proud to say they worked with Diddy are now scrubbing his name from their social media. Collaborators are distancing themselves. Brands have pulled his products off shelves. His TV deals are canceled. His Revolt TV network, which he founded in 2013, is being sold off. Forbes estimated his net worth at around $1 billion before all this started. Now his assets are tied up in legal fees, civil settlements, and the $500,000 fine from his criminal case. Multiple civil lawsuits are still pending, and some of those could cost him tens of millions more. Cassie Ventura released a statement after the sentencing. She said she was relieved that justice had been served and that she hoped other survivors would feel empowered to come forward. She also thanked the prosecutors and investigators who took her seriously when so many others did not. Other accusers echoed similar sentiments, saying that they finally felt heard after years of being dismissed, threatened, or paid off to stay quiet. But the whole thing definitely raises some uncomfortable questions about the music industry and how it protects powerful men. For decades, people in hip-hop knew something was off about Diddy. There were rumors about his parties, whispers about what happened to women who got too close, stories that never made it to the press because Bad Boy's legal team was too good at shutting things down. But nobody with real power did anything. Record execs looked the other way because Combs was making them money. Radio stations kept playing his artists because Bad Boy moved units. The media gave him magazine covers and TV specials because he was good for ratings. Even after the Cassie lawsuit dropped, there are people defending him. Prominent figures in hip-hop called it a cash grab, saying she was bitter about the breakup and accused her of trying to ruin a black man's legacy. Some fans echo those talking points, flooding social media with conspiracies about the government targeting successful black entrepreneurs. But as more victims came forward and as the evidence started piling up, those defenses got quieter and quieter. By the time the trial started, most of Combs' high-profile supporters had gone silent. There's also the comparison to other music industry figures who faced similar allegations. R. Kelly got 30 years for racketeering and sex trafficking. Harvey Weinstein got 23 years for rape, sexual assault in New York, plus another 16 in California. Bill Cosby got convicted, then had his conviction overturned on a technicality. The hashtag #MeToo movement exposed abusers across Hollywood, but hip-hop was slower to reckon with its own problems. Maybe because the culture is built on rebellion and anti-authoritarianism, there's a reluctance to trust law enforcement or believe accusers. Maybe because so many rappers have been unfairly targeted by cops and prosecutors, there's this knee-jerk reaction to defend anybody facing charges. But this case, it was different. The evidence was too strong, victims too credible, and the jury, after hearing everything, decided Combs was guilty. So now he's sitting in a federal prison, facing years behind bars, watching his legacy turn to ash. The guy who once told everybody to, quote unquote, take that, is now taking a prison sentence and destroyed reputation. Bad Boy Records, the label that helped define a generation of hip-hop, is now synonymous with abuse and exploitation. Those white parties that everybody wanted to attend are now seen as hunting grounds where predators roamed freely. And Sean Combs, the man who built an empire on charisma and ambition, is now just another celebrity who thought he was untouchable. His lawyers are filing appeals, but the chances of overturning the conviction are slim. The civil lawsuits are still moving forward, but some of those could result in massive payouts. His business empire is collapsing, his influence on the music industry is gone, and his name, once synonymous with success, is now mud. Basically a cautionary tale about power, abuse, and the consequences of thinking that you're above the law. In the end, Diddy built something massive and then burned it all down himself. He had everything: money, fame, respect, influence, and he threw it all away because he thought he could get away with anything. For a long time he did, but not anymore. Yay, at the time of taping this video, this channel has made it up to 4 subscribers. Maybe you could be the 5th. Smack the subscribe button and the like button. Thank you for watching.